New to DFW or just looking for some new best friends to ride to work with? Pick us. Pick us.
Oh, please pick me.
Yeah, pick me.
I promise I'll give you my honest advice.
So good.
We can share our favorite finds with each other.
And talk about the kids together.
Chances are I'll probably say something random which may or may not make you laugh.
Don't forget a little gossiping about celebrities.
We would love to count you as our friend. Hang with us weekday mornings, 6 to 10 a.m.
We're the Kid Craddock Morning Show on 106.1 KISS FM.
Night Callers Bigfoot Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. It is April 15th, 2018, and you're here with your hosts, Lori Hood and Lauren Smith. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? Well, I know you're not doing good. That's right.
I got the seasonal allergy blues over here. I have something that feels like strep but tested negative for strep, so I don't even. They don't. It left all the doctors scratching their heads. They don't know what it is, other than it's a virus, it's contagious, and ride it out. They offered a steroid shot, but I'm not about that life. So anyway,
well, it really seems to be going around. It's like last week I had one side of my face swell up, or was it last week or the week before? I can't remember, but I went to the doctor with one side of my face swelled up, and he was like, "Did something bite you? I've never seen this before, And I was like, "No, nothing bit me. It started on my lip, and the next thing you know, the whole side, just one side. It was real weird. So if you ever get that out there, listeners, it is not that strange because it does happen to other people. So steroid shot took care of that, and I'm okay. So I don't really have anything new to say other than, our intro song that everyone loves so much and we love so much. Well, I've been hearing it on commercials. They have been stole our song. They don't have the Night Callers Bigfoot Radio, but it's the same song, And I'm like, what is up with that? But what happens when you don't create it yourself and you buy it from a music place?
I thought it was. What did somebody tell me? Someone heard it and told me that was the Levi's song, like Levi's jeans, I guess. And
no.
Or maybe it was.
Well, we might be.
Maybe it was.
We may come up with
Cars 3. I don't know. Anyway, I heard somebody told me, "Oh yeah, hey, that's that one song."
Yeah,
like, great.
Yeah, it was on Cars 3. It was on Cars 3, and now it's on some other like a car. No, it's I don't know what commercial it is, but I think maybe we need to find a new one. Something very strange that nobody else is going to want. Yeah.
Well,
we won't be seeing it on a. Yeah,
it's only ours.
I know you really love it. We had it first.
Yes, we had it first.
Well, we have a really special guest tonight from Alabama. His name is Alex Bobulinski, and he's a paranormal investigator and a cryptid researcher from Birmingham. And he's spent numerous hours investigating claims of the paranormal and has captured some very interesting evidence on film. He currently runs a YouTube channel with over 31,000 subscribers, where he uploads videos from his investigations. He has had plenty of he has plenty of amazing territory there in Alabama to cover, and currently has been seeking out some very interesting cases. So we're interested in talking to him tonight. He's going to talk about the Alabama White Thing and Witches Cave and river monsters and all kinds of stuff. So we're very, very happy to have Alex on tonight. Alex, welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks, guys. I'm doing great. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing fine. Lauren's puny, but we're not going to talk about that. So, welcome.
I could use some more time in the woods. This week's been kind of raining, so I haven't been out much.
Oh, yes. Yes, I understand that. But, it has turned off cold here. It's more in April. It felt more like March, It's just, it was beautiful if you were in the sun, but if you got in the shade, it was like brr. So, Alex, let's begin with finding out how you got started on this.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was a kid, I'd always been just really interested in like the paranormal, Bigfoot, UFOs, just pretty much all that mysterious stuff that is around out there. And ever since I was a kid, I was also a believer in that stuff. And mostly when I was younger, I had more experiences with spirits. But as I got older, I definitely started finding how much I enjoyed spending time in the woods, so much so that I even did the Appalachian Trail through hike in 2014 and spent, 5 months out hiking from Maine to Georgia.
Wow.
So, through all that and my interest in the paranormal, I met my friend Jonathan Odom, who's a Bigfoot researcher in Alabama. And he really inspired me to get more into the Bigfoot research because he does it. And he just showed me some things out in the woods. And I was like, how did I not notice this stuff before? Like just things about tree leans and tree bends and structures and oddly placed logs and things like that.
Yes.
But that's kind of
I
little...
think the reason why you don't see them to begin with is because you're not looking for them. And then once somebody points them out, then you can't miss them. After that, it's like, but continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Another thing I want to say is I've even started noticing things, strange like structures or strange placed logs, like twisted trees, things. You guys know all that kind of stuff that we look for. And I've started noticing that stuff in like smaller wooded areas closer to civilization. And it makes me wonder if maybe they were there at one time or if they're still there, still come visit those spots or what. Because I start noticing stuff now, like whenever I go into the woods. Just
what
strange
I have
things.
found. Yeah, what I've found and been hearing is that more and more and more they're finding evidence of Bigfoot being closer to metropolitan areas, within metropolitan areas, wooded areas, parks. They, come in on the creeks. Is it because they're losing their habitat, or is there opportunity to, raid trash cans, or why? I guess it just depends, but there has been more and more, and they're calling them the urban Bigfoot. So, that would be really weird.
I've noticed.
Yes. So you live in Birmingham, right?
I live just south of Birmingham in a city called Hoover, but it's still part of the Birmingham area. I have lived downtown, right near where Sloss Furnace is, which is a pretty, it's a pretty famous haunted location.
Mhm.
And I live in Hoover, and what I've found is that in the areas surrounding Birmingham, like outer areas, there's a lot of sightings in those areas, like just smaller little country towns, like in like near Bessemer, Alabama, and up north, even up toward Huntsville, which is closer to Tennessee. There's actually sightings up there as well. So I found that all over the state there have been sightings of these things. And I never even thought about it until my friend Jonathan started showing me some stuff. And then I started looking into it myself and find out that there's quite a lot of sightings in Alabama.
Wow. Well, I have done some research in Alabama around the Sylacauga area. I'm looking on the map to see exactly where Birmingham is.
It's pretty much like right in the middle.
Okay. So Sylacauga is north of Birmingham?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of terrain do you have in the area where you do your research? Is it mountainous or wooded? Or?
One of my favorite places to go is called Talladega National Forest. And
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's actually more east, about halfway from Birmingham to Atlanta, Georgia. And actually, they call it the foothills of the Appalachians, like Mount Cheaha, which is the highest mountain in Alabama. It's not very high, but it is a little mountainous area. And that is my favorite place to go, because I believe that they're active in that area, like, to this day. And
have you
had
any encounters with them or seen one or anything like that yet?
For me, there was one night I did a video series called Camping Alone in Bigfoot Territory, I think is what it's called. And I go out and camp alone out in the Talladega National Forest, and the morning when I woke up from the first night of camping, I actually believe I saw one. I didn't catch it on camera because I just got out of the tent, and I saw something up on the ridge right across from me, walking across the ridge. It was like this big, just brown thing is what I could see. And I thought that might have been one because it just seemed like they were up on that ridge watching me in the valley below in my tent. And the reason I believe that they're in that area too is because the rangers there have told us about other sightings in that same area where I was, only I went off the trail and followed a creek down into the woods and found like a little circle to camp in. And I believe that they were keeping their distance, but checking me out because I saw that thing. And later on that day, I went up on the ridge, and I started hearing sounds, and I was trying to see if I could catch anything. I didn't see any other animals or anything, but it could have been a deer making sounds. But, I mean, you know how it is out there.
Yeah.
It's I love the feeling of, like, getting out there and being in the zone and everything, because you'll just be listening and when you start noticing those things, like some tapping on a tree or some weird knocking or strange sounds that you might not have even realized were there before.
Right. Wow, that is great that you got to see one, and that you're experiencing them. Would you say you're more experienced at being a paranormal investigator than a Bigfoot investigator? Would you say you have more experience?
I've put in a lot more time into the paranormal investigating. I do consider myself like pretty experienced in the woods as far as like knowing how to get around, water purification, how to start a fire, things like that.
That's awesome.
I've always been really interested in the Bigfoot phenomenon. So it kind of just went hand in hand to get into that stuff. Because I was like, I love going out and camping. I love Bigfoot. Why not try to do some Bigfoot investigations? Yeah.
So you didn't really have trouble believing that they existed before you saw one?
I've been a believer since I was a kid, honestly.
That's awesome.
I've just never really doubted the existence of a lot of things that people probably don't believe in. But
right.
Personally, yeah, but I still like to remain skeptical too. You know, like if I catch something in my footage or something like that, I will try to debunk it. But
yeah.
I am a believer.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I started out very similar to you. I started out growing up seeing spirits and became paranormal investigator, and then got turned on to the Bigfoot phenomenon by having a sighting. And so it pretty much, I love the Bigfooting. I mean, the paranormal, I'm like, I'm done with that. I found a new passion. So, but anyway, you were going to say something, and
yeah. Well, first I want to say too that like having a sighting can change people's lives. You know, it can change their whole view on the world. And I mean, I've definitely seen a lot of people who were completely skeptic go to believer and investigator just from one sighting.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
I was going to tell one
story.
That was
in my case.
Yeah. I was going to tell a story about another night. This was like in the colder, I want to say it was maybe March or April of last year. So it was still a little chilly. But I was camping. I was on the road, just hitting some different locations, and I decided to swing by Talladega. And I did a little investigation with my friend he's also like an animal tracker, so he's like a really valuable person to have, you know, when you're going investigating. But me and him went out for a little bit, and then they had to go home, so I decided to just camp out there that night. And I woke up around, it was like 4 in the morning, and I could hear something snapping branches of like it sounded like fairly large branches just being completely snapped in half. And it was just really weird because it was like lightly raining outside, and I could hear the snapping of the branches. So I started filming, and I caught most of that on film. And then it kind of stopped, so I turned my camera off. And then about 20 seconds later, a whole tree just falls over.
Oh, no, and you didn't have the camera on then.
No, I didn't. And I was like,
the luck.
I was just mad about
That's
that.
The way
I wasn't really scared. I was just like, I didn't have my camera on. Why? And then it was just quiet the rest of the night. And I told my friend about it, and he was like, if it was the Squatch, they might have been trying to intimidate you or scare you out of their area. But then I didn't show any fear, so maybe they just said, oh, we'll just leave this guy alone. I don't know, just a theory. But that was enough. I've had a lot of little experiences like that with things like that happening where I didn't see something, but I could hear something doing stuff outside of the tent or out in the darkness.
Sometimes I think they do that to try to get you to leave, especially fishing trees over. That usually really runs people off. Pretty successful at doing that. And since you stayed, I guess they just go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I tried to just remain calm, and like I didn't freak out or anything because I was just mad I wasn't filming, and I was just listening. But I didn't have any like. I'm pretty brave because, you know, I go into crazy places alone all the time, so I wasn't really scared. And then after the Appalachian Trail, I've seen over 30 bears in the wild. So I mean, it's not like I was just listening and staying. I was ready. I had a bat. That's all. I don't carry a gun with me when I go out. I know a lot of people frown on that, but personally, it's just not my style. And so I was just in my tent listening to the sounds.
Well, I think that's awesome. I think that's the best part of tent camping. You know, a lot of people want to stay in a motorhome or a travel trailer. They think that's camping. But I really enjoy being in the tent listening. And I've actually gotten spooked sitting outside. Feels like the whole woods are watching you. And sometimes I get uncomfortable. And going in the tent, I know I only have nylon to protect me, but I feel safer. It's all an illusion because you can hear absolutely everything that is coming or going. And so have you had anything come up yet and try to touch your tent or
there was
touch your tent?
I've had some. I've even had like other animals run by my tent because I figured like there was one night there was something like we didn't know what it was, but it turned out to be a porcupine. We were up in we were in New Jersey, I think, or gosh, I can't even remember. Somewhere along the Appalachian Trail where there was something little, and it sounded like it was just running around on two legs, but it turned out to be this big porcupine. And another time in Georgia, I had something big. It was something big. I could hear it. You could feel the vibrations when it would walk, and it was like grunting and stuff. But I'm not sure if it was a bear or what. I didn't see it, but it was walking right around the tent. I started like making noise, and then it left us alone. But it was in an area where they have a lot of bears, so it could have likely been a bear, but I'm not sure, you know.
What kind of noise do you do to scare off a bear? Just start yelling? Or?
What I do, I start banging on the ground myself, like with my hands, and I just start screaming like, "Wow!" Like just screaming stuff like nonsense. Because usually the noise alone will just spook it and it'll just want to leave. But you do have to watch out because if people feed the bears, or if it's in like a national park where they aren't allowed to be hunted, then you got to be careful because some of the national park bears will walk right past you. They don't even care that you're there because they see people all the time.
Yes.
So,
oh my goodness.
Always just got to be careful with your food when you're camping. And I try to, I sleep very well in the woods, but I also try to lightly sleep. So if I hear something, I try to wake up and just grab I usually go right for my camera and start trying to film now.
Right.
And then carry a lot of extra batteries.
Videos, I've never been to your page, but when you video like that and you're recording what you're hearing, is it like in darkness, or do you turn on a flashlight and do a Blair Witch Project kind of face thing, or what do you do?
I've done a little bit of both. Like normally if it's like the middle of the night and I wake up and start hearing sounds, I'll just start filming in the dark and try to keep my lights off and just listen.
Right.
And then if I'm like hiking through the dark, of course I'll have lights on. And and then also I do some infrared and full spectrum filming as well. And I've got a really nice infrared light made by Deadlight. I think it's a 40 watt. It's either 40 or 60. I can't remember for some reason, but it's a really good light. And with that, I can kind of scan around at night and see if I see anything like in close vicinity. But that's probably one of my favorite things to do is to go out in pitch black, but just with an IR camera, and you just kind of walk around. But for something like that, you really have to be in an area that you know very well, because you can easily get mixed around doing that.
Well, doesn't it affect your eyes when you're looking through it, and then you're just blind for a little while? Or am I thinking of night vision?
That's definitely the infrared, like monocle, or like the little monocles or telescope-looking cameras.
Yes.
Those things will mess up your eyes. What I use normally, those things, you'll pull it down, you won't be able to see for a few minutes.
It's like, you need someone there to keep something from getting you while you're trying to get your eyesight back.
Yeah. It's pretty funny when you pull it down. You're like, whoa, I really can't see.
Yeah.
Like my friend warned me about it. He's like, well, you're not gonna be able to see. And then I was like, yep, I can't see.
And it's really odd too, because it affects one eye, but affects both eyes when you remove it from your eye. And I know that now with FLIR and all the cool thermal imaging that they have nowadays, these night vision scopes are kind of obsolete, but and the FLIR is so much nicer that you can really see what's going on out there through a heat signature. So, but tell me about the Alabama white thing. What is that? And that's fine with the THA.
Yeah, the white thing.
Fine.
Yeah, the white thing is it's something that's been sighted in this area since, some say as early as the 1930s, possibly even earlier, maybe, that we just don't know about. But it's like this, some people describe it as looking like a big white Bigfoot. Some people describe it as looking more like some kind of lion-dog hybrid creature. And then some people have described it as looking like a really big white kangaroo-looking thing with a human head. And so I've been going around talking to people who have had eyewitness sightings and documenting and recording their accounts. And I'm working on like a little video about it. And so far, most of the people I've talked to about it live in the northern part of Alabama, like around Huntsville, Decatur, that kind of area, and Florence. And the one guy actually, this goes into the urban Bigfoot stuff. Like when he saw it, it was rummaging through trash cans, kind of near some. It's kind of a rural area, but there's like a Dollar General and some other stuff, and like people live out there. So there's not a lot of heavy woods around where he saw this thing. And he said at first he thought it was like a huge dog because it was like in the trash can, but as he pulled up closer to it, it was like hunched over in the trash, and he said it had really long, like off-white, like kind of like dirty white hair because it had been outside living, I guess. And he said it was rummaging through the trash. He didn't see its face or anything, but just this big white thing. And he said it was taller than, he said it was about as big as it looked like it was about as big as like the front end of his car or something. And then it was about, he couldn't tell how tall it was because it was hunched over. It's basically this big white thing that people see. And I'm talking people younger than me. I'm 27, so people in their early 20s have seen it that I've recorded, and then people as old as in their 90s have told me about it.
Well, based on the varying descriptions, they can't all be classified as the Alabama white thing because the descriptions are so varying.
Yeah, there's several different styles of this white thing that people see. There's even one in Huntsville that they say lives in the drain. There's like this giant drainage ditch sewer thing, and they say that it like lives around that area, and that it has no eyes and no ears, I think, and because it's like lived in underground. So
that's creepy.
There's several different descriptions of what people think it looks like. Which is weird.
Yes.
Because, like you said, is it each one a different thing or what? But one of the theories out there is that there was this circus train wreck. I forget what year it happened, but there was a circus train wreck, I think, in North Georgia. And some people think that it was a creature that they were holding in the circus and it escaped. And then there's all kinds of theories like that. Some people call it the she-devil because it, like, screams like a woman. And I haven't really figured out why else they call it that, but I've came across a couple people that referred to it as a she-devil.
Huh. So what is the most current sighting that you know of the white thing?
For the white thing, the girl that I talked to had seen it. It was in the last year or two that she saw it up near this abandoned house. And the weird thing about hers was that her dog started pulling her away from whatever she saw, which I thought was interesting because at least I know that my dog would chase after whatever he saw or bark at it.
Yes.
But her dog was pulling away from it, which I thought was weird. But also, when I was up filming in Huntsville, there's a park that's kind of like, it's like a pretty heavily wooded little park in Huntsville. And it's right around there's like the Green Mountain area. A lot of paranormal stuff in this area in general. But on the specific mountaintop, I was going around filming for the White Thing video, and I went into the camp store and I asked them if they had heard of the White Thing, and the one lady hadn't, and she was like, "No, I don't know what that is." And then the guy was like, "Yeah, there's actually been a sighting up here in the last month." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah, they saw it over on, not on one of the roads to the park, but on like the main road leading up to the park."
Wow.
So there had been sightings in that area recently when I was up there filming.
Do you think there's more than one White Thing?
I think so, just from the different areas they see it, and like we were saying, the different descriptions of how it looks like. Because how could it look like a white Bigfoot and a white lion dog? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Unless it's
or a kangaroo-looking thing, or yeah.
Yeah, that was the weirdest.
With a human head.
That was the weirdest. That one kind of freaked. Like if I saw that at like night, I would probably cry. No,
yeah, I would probably cry too. I don't think I'd want to ever go outside again. That just yeah. It's shocking enough to see a Bigfoot because you don't believe they exist. But to see something that looks so just like a genetic disaster, kangaroo body with a human head, I just don't know what I'd do if I saw something like that.
7 or 8 feet tall, too.
Oh, no.
That's what they say.
I have to be pleading the blood of Jesus on it.
The one girl was definitely freaked out, and everyone, you know how when, I'm sure you guys run into this too, when people are kind of wary about talking to you because they're not sure if you're going to like give them any ridicule, if you're going to call them crazy or something like that. But usually once they talk to me and we meet up, they feel real comfortable about telling me everything. But I know that they don't want to be called crazy because they know what they saw.
Of course not.
And I'm gonna be right there saying, I believe you. Like, I believe in this stuff 100%. And I think that helps with gathering the eyewitness accounts. It definitely, if they feel comfortable about, like, telling you the story and everything, it helps to document that stuff.
No, there's nothing worse than being attacked or ridiculed or laughed at. I
Yeah.
generally do not even tell anybody my encounter or any other encounter I've had I generally just shut it down right there. I'm not going to sit there and try to convince them that this really happened to me. I'm not going to waste my time. And I've had people genuinely ask me and still couldn't believe it after I told them. But after you've been in this for a while, you get such a thick skin, it doesn't matter. You know what you know. You know what you saw. You believe.
For sure.
And you know you're not crazy. You're other witnesses, thousands of witnesses out there, seen the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's definitely something that you have to make a decision whether you're going to share it with someone or not. But I'm glad that you have the good, I'm trying to think of the word, you have a good presence about you, that people feel comfortable talking to you, and I think that's very valuable when doing interviews. So, can you tell us about the river monsters?
Yeah. So that's something that I'm trying to find more time to start actually going out into the lakes and rivers and investigating. But there's always been legends about these I just call them sea serpents, even though they're like river snakes in the Coosa River in Alabama. And there's like this old article which my friend Scott Martis, who's a really big investigator on the Lake Champlain monster, he's told me that he thinks that the article it's like an old, from the late 1800s, New York Times article about some people that found this sea serpent that had eaten a Native American in his canoe, and he ate the whole thing, and then they found it dead because it ate the canoe and it killed it. And he thinks that story was slightly hoaxed or all the way a hoax just because of that kind of outrageous claim that this thing ate the whole canoe.
Yeah.
But there have been sightings, in those areas. And then over in North Carolina, we have the Lake Norman monster, which is kind of like some people describe it as looking like some kind of alligator or dinosaur type creature. And the interesting thing about the Lake Norman monster is that Lake Norman is a man-made lake. But the reason I think that, and a lot of other people say this too, that the monster is there, if it is because it was already in the river that they dammed off to become the lake. And it just got trapped in when they dammed it, because it's a huge lake. And before that, it was a river. I can't remember which river it was, but there were sightings of a monster in that river dating back to the Native American days.
Wow.
So we do have several things like that in the South, which I was surprised to find out about because I never would have thought. You hear about the Loch Ness Monster, but there's actually a lot of American lake and sea monsters and river monsters. Another thing we have is the there's giant catfish people talk about that are, as big as cars.
Yes. Their eyes
like
are
that.
as far apart as headlights, and they usually find them. In fact, where I used to live in southwest Oklahoma, they used to say there was a giant catfish at the bottom of the dam. That divers had seen it, and its eyes were as far apart as a Jeep. And that it was a man-eater, but you hear those stories almost every lake that I've been, and I'd just like to see them pull one of those things up.
Yeah, it would be amazing. I would imagine if you were diving or something and you saw something like that. I'd probably freak out because sometimes when you're in the water, it already feels like something like that's going to happen.
Exactly. Have you ever seen that YouTube video of the dog that swam by its feet and it just jumped out of the water straight up? And yeah, that's me. That is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing, I mean, you're just not as in control in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like
visibility and everything else. And, yes.
Yeah. But I definitely think I believe in those things too, and like I even believe in that there are some plesiosaurs left, like the Loch Ness Monster, Lake Champlain Monster, things like that.
Yes.
And
I think so too, because there's just been too many sightings. I think it's got to be something that is not really extinct that still exists.
Yeah, there's just I think there's very low populations, and and that they just stay deep and probably stay away from us.
Yes,
if they're intelligent.
So this bipedal ape man that you were investigating, is that the Sasquatch Bigfoot, or is this something entirely different?
Yeah, I mean, I just call it Bigfoot myself, but some people do believe that some of the ones in Alabama might be slightly smaller than ones, in the Northwest or in certain areas like that where people do see things that are around 8 feet tall around Alabama that I've read about. And one town in Alabama, I think it was Evergreen, or one of the towns declared itself the Bigfoot capital of Alabama. It's a few hours away from me, so I haven't been able to get out there yet. But so there are a lot of areas around here where people see them and just call them Bigfoot, describe them as being a Bigfoot. Some people do call it the booger, too. There has been...
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. And then, of course, like the skunk apes, like down south in Florida, there's the Apalachicola Forest, which is pretty close to Alabama. And I want to do more stuff down there, which kind of gets into that kind of territory.
Yeah.
Skunk ape. But, yeah, so I just call it Bigfoot. And one place that I go that's actually pretty close to where I live is near this theme park called Alabama Adventures. Oh, that's what it used to be called. It's gone through several name changes. I think now it's called Splash Adventure Park. But
really,
one thing about that place that's interesting to me is that a lot of people say there's a Native American curse on that land, and that's why like businesses fail there. So, like that's one of the only businesses there, and it's gone through several different name changes. Like the theme park side closed down. So people say that there's the curse, but then there's also sightings of Bigfoots around that area. And I actually confirmed that with someone who worked at the park. And they said that the managers have tried to set out game cams and catch it on camera, but they never have. And I go out there in the woods around the property and investigate, and I've found some interesting stuff myself.
So what have you found? Have you ever found any tracks?
I found a few possible tracks. I still haven't found one that was like perfect to be casted or anything. But I have found some. I've seen some taken in Alabama, but I haven't found any myself that were that perfect. I have found a lot of things that I did think were tracks. In that area, one thing I found that was cool to me was the Native American trail marker trees, where trees have been bent and then they grew over time. And they have that weird kind of kink in them. So I found a lot of those.
We call them Indian signal trees here in Texas.
Mhm. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, there's plenty of those in that area, and then I found a lot like around here. I found a lot of weird like I'll find a tree that's been uprooted and turned upside down and leaned up against some trees, but nowhere near its stump or where it was pulled out of the ground. Like it'll just be a tree flipped upside down, leaned up against some other trees. And I'm like, maybe a storm could do that, but some of these trees I found were pretty, like it would take a couple men to move this tree like that.
Right. And a
And that's when I
tornado
started
could
questioning it.
possibly do that. Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
So interesting. You know, they
Yeah,
had
you
some
always gotta-
pictures of this was happening up in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Large trees were being uprooted and then turned around and jammed back into the ground with the roots up in the air. And they actually have pictures of this. And then later it was found out that it was lumberjacks that were hoaxing people with these, you know, they were using skidders to do it and
Yeah.
to pull the trees out of the ground and stuff. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that was what came down the grapevine to me.
Mm-hmm.
We have about
Yeah,
15 minutes left. We have about 15 minutes left, and I would like to talk about the Witch's Caves, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Yes.
That's fine with me because it's in Gadsden, Alabama, which is slightly north from the Talladega National Forest, where like my favorite Squatch area, which also that area is just like I could talk about that area a lot because a lot of stuff happens in the Talladega National Forest with other subjects as well, like paranormal, UFO sightings. But anyway, directly north is Gadsden, Alabama. And there's a road there that is called Hines Road. And it starts out as just a little neighborhood road, and then it turns off onto a dirt road, and you follow the dirt road down. And then on your left, you'll come across this cave. And they say that the whole road is haunted by the witch of Hines Road, which some people call her, I've heard her called Torbit, I've heard her called Tibbet, and then one person had claimed that the real witch's name was Zula Mae Lester, and that her husband initials was WK, which stood for Warlock, is what they told me. But they say that she lived on Hines Road, on the dirt road part, down by this little pond. And the house is no longer there, but supposedly it burned down, I think in the 80s. The weird thing about that is that some people go up there and claim to see the house and even go inside the house, but when they return, it's not there anymore. And there has been actually several stories that I've read out there about that happening, and I thought that was pretty interesting. But the cave and the pond come into play because they say back in the day when the townsfolk started realizing that the children were, a lot of children were going missing. I haven't been able to historically confirm this whole story, but this is what the story that goes around, was that the witch was taking the children, and the people went up to confront her, and they found the pond was completely blood red, and that there was like body parts and people's children in the pond. So they confronted the witch at her house, and then they burned her alive, is what they say. And I think somehow the cave gets tied into the story. Like I think that they found some kids in the cave too, or something like that. But the other story about the cave is that if you go inside it and you go to the very end of the cave, like as far as you can go, because it gets smaller and smaller the more you go inside the cave, they say that you'll see this skinned dog or coyote at the end of the cave, and then it'll be growling at you, and then it'll chase you out of the cave. So that's one of the stories. Yeah, so when I went in the cave, I was by myself, and I had that on my mind because I had just read about that, So I like go in this cave, and I'm just sitting there like, if I see that thing, I'm gonna freak out and probably like jump up and hit my head on the cave ceiling. And anyway, so people also say that they see this black dog on that road, and a lot of people have said they see it, and that it'll chase you away from the road, and it's like a big black dog, which could kind of go into some of like the hellhound stuff people claim to see.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of stories out there at other hauntings and things like that about these black dogs that show up. So.
Yes. I've heard that too. Have you, well, I'm going to let you continue your story. Do you have anything else to tell us about this cave? Or? I guess you didn't go to the end of it and see if there was anything there.
I got pretty far back, but like I said, it starts getting smaller and smaller. So I need to go back. I'm going to try and maybe have someone come with me just in case anything happens, because I heard that it's like an old mine. So I was kind of watching out for that. I didn't want anything bad to happen there because, you know, caves and old things like that can collapse, or, you know, you could get trapped inside. Plus, I had just watched the movie.
Also claustrophobic. I couldn't do anything like that.
I had just watched the movie The Descent, like, the week before. So I was already like, I was like, I don't know about this today. Might not be the day for this.
Have you ever heard the story about the Bell Witch?
Yeah, I've actually been to the Bell Witch Cave.
Oh, really? Tell us about that. Anything?
Yeah, I find it interesting that a lot of these old evil witch tales involve caves for some reason, but the story about the Bell Witch is a little different because it was more of like a tormenting spirit. They just called it Kate the Bell's Witch. And when I went in the cave, nowadays they only let you go in on a guided tour, and they will only let you go in so far. The cave is said to be over, I think it's over 15 miles deep that they know of.
Wow.
And they only let us go in so far. They wouldn't let me film, but I did manage to sneak in my GoPro and get a little bit of footage because I was not about to leave empty-handed. I had to do it for. But yeah, that cave has an interesting vibes to it. I would love to do an overnight there, like maybe with like one other person, because I've heard that supposedly no one's ever stayed in there the whole night. That's what they say.
Oh.
So.
Well, tell us the story about the Bell Witch, you know, for those out there that don't know the story. Can you relate that story real quick?
Yeah, from what I don't know like a super amount of details about the whole story, but basically I think his name was John Bell. He had some land out there, and they started seeing these strange animals like outside their house, and they would hear strange sounds like this is described it like being like chains or things slapping on the side of the house and things like that. And then they started experiencing more things along the line of like a haunting with like poltergeist activity and getting like smacked around and things like that. And they would hear singing. And like I said, they would call it, I think they called it Kate the Bell's Witch. And kind of started this whole story about it. And I think they found the cave a while after the hauntings were occurring, and then they kind of thought that it might have originated from the cave. There is like an Indian burial ground right on top of the cave. So a lot of people think that that's like a special area, and that maybe it had something to do with some kind of Native American, I guess, something to do with the Native Americans, maybe a ritual or something like that had been placed on that land.
It sounds like sacred land, yes.
Yeah, because they're like buried right on top of the cave.
when you were in the cave, did you feel, I know you said you felt a special vibe. What did you mean by that? Like creeped out totally,
to me,
or a lot of energy, or?
To me, it was like a lot of energy, and then toward the end, when we were heading back toward the entrance, I started getting kind of like dizzy and feeling kind of lightheaded. One thing that I believe I feel when spirit presence is near me is sometimes I'll get like a real heavy feeling, and I'll get that kind of dizziness sometimes, and that's kind of what I felt there. Was like a dizzy, confused, lightheaded feeling, and I've actually gotten that at other locations as well. And there was one time I even got it in the woods. I almost got lost because of it, even though I was just following the same river to get back. And it was like, it just hit me all of a sudden. And
they say that infrasound,
that's what I was going
Sasquatch
to say.
can do infrasound. Yes, that's what I think it was in the case
that's what I thought too.
Along the river. And what you were experiencing in the cave. Yeah.
Maybe some kind of vibration or something in the cave was similar to that.
Yeah.
That's what I would think. Who knows? But it's some interesting stuff. And
most definitely. Well, you have 4 minutes left. Is there anything you want to, at all that you want to share with us? Yes.
Real quick, I'll tell one more story about Talladega National Forest.
Okay.
I'll try to just tell a short version of it, but I was out there camping one night, and I didn't go out to do any research or anything. I was just out camping, and I didn't bring any of my equipment, just my friend, my dog, and my tent. No electronics. Just went to enjoy the woods. And everything was normal. We started a fire. We ate food. We laid down in the tent. And then I started to doze off, and all of a sudden my dog started barking. And I look up, and I see these two little blue lights, like right outside the tent. And they were kind of like strobing blue lights. And one of them flies up to the tent. Yeah, one of them flies up to the tent, and I whispered, I was like, there it is. And all of a sudden it darted off and flew off into the woods, and the other one followed it. So
oh my gosh.
I go back to sleep.
Do you know the same thing happened to us in Alabama?
Really? In Alabama?
I thought
too?
it was like, yes. When we were in Alabama, we were camped. Yes. And it was shining on the tent.
Mhm.
But I didn't really see like the pin lights of it. It was more like just the blue light shining on the tent, and then it would like shut off or move. It was really hard to explain what it was doing. But go ahead. I'm so sorry, but I completely forgot about that experience.
The ones that we saw were like they were like little blue, like it was like a light ball, and it was like it was a thing that was right outside the tent that I saw. There have been a lot of other reports about strange lights in Alabama and stuff like that, but so I went back to sleep after seeing the two, and then at some point my dog starts barking again, and I get up, and there's literally 6 or 7 of these blue lights outside of the tent, and we're in the middle of the Talladega National Forest, like deep. We had hiked way out into the woods to camp, and it was just like they were like hovering outside the tent. And I did catch a glimpse of one up close, and it looked like it had like wings like an insect. So I've tried to look into see what kind of insect it could be, but that's just another one of the strange things that happens in that forest. I know a couple other people who have seen them too.
I think in our case, I think it was probably a helicopter or something like that, because it was coming from up above, shining down on our tent. And then
it was blue.
And it was blue. Blue light. Yeah.
Yeah, the ones I
It
saw
was
were
real
like little.
strange because it was probably about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I don't know why a
when we
helicopter would
unzipped
be
the
doing
tent, yeah, well, we never heard anything. And when we
And that's
unzipped the
another
tent
thing,
and
you would
looked,
hear it.
there was nothing out there. Right. It was just
Yeah, there's
very weird.
some weird stuff. And I find it interesting that they're both blue of color. Maybe they're something in the same thing, one in the same. I don't know, but yeah, there's just some awesome stuff, and that is why I'm on YouTube doing the videos. I bring my camera with me everywhere now, and if I even go out in the woods, I'm probably going to be filming the whole time because if something happens, now I'm determined to catch it on camera.
Exactly, but Alabama is an awesome place to go research. It really is all throughout the state, south, east, west, north, and central. Yes, it is. Do you know what?
Yeah,
we are completely out of time.
Okay, no problem.
In fact, we're streaming,
Thank you guys
Alex.
for having me.
Alex,
Yeah,
you were
thank you guys for
awesome.
having me.
I thank you for coming on. You were just excellent. I love the wide variety of things that we discussed and everything, and we'd love to have you back sometime.
Definitely, yeah. There's a lot more we could. I tried to keep it as short as I could because there's a lot to go over, of course. But
of course,
we can always do that. And also, if you guys ever come back to Alabama, we'll have to get together and
definitely
do some investigating.
Definitely. That would be so fun. That would be so fun. Definitely, we'll keep you in mind. I'm going to keep your number. I have it up here. And would love to have you back sometime, probably not this season, but next. And in the meantime, you racked up some really fun adventures, okay? So we'll have some more to talk about. Okay. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming on. And we'd love to have you back. And everyone out there, we need to say good night. Thanks for listening to Night Caller's Bigfoot Radio.
New to DFW or just looking for some new best friends to ride to work with? Pick us. Pick us.
Oh, please pick me.
Yeah, pick me.
I promise I'll give you my honest advice.
So good.
We can share our favorite finds with each other.
And talk about the kids together.
Chances are I'll probably say something random which may or may not make you laugh.
Don't forget a little gossiping about celebrities.
We would love to count you as our friend. Hang with us weekday mornings, 6 to 10 a.m.
We're the Kid Craddock Morning Show on 106.1 KISS FM.
Some people say Texas is its own country, but one thing is for sure, DFW is part of Kid Nation.
What's Kid Nation, you ask? It's people just like you who are part of a great community listening to 106.1 KISS FM each and every morning.
We'll make you laugh. There's a lot of heart, an occasional tear, some great advice, stories you'll share, and great rewards too, like big money and exotic trips.
Check out the Kid Craddock Morning Show, only on 106.1 KISS FM.